So let's look at the moral signs. Matthew 24. I'm using that scripture so that I can attempt to summarize everything from there. Because Matthew 24 gives us an overview, but the book of Revelation gives us specificities. If we go into the book of Revelations, the signs alone will take us many series to be able to handle. But when we are teaching it in a short series like we are doing now, then we have to do it from the overview. So let's look at the signs that borders on morality. They are moral-based signs. Matthew 24. We'll go back to our scripture again from verse 1. Hey. Hey, ha. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the building of the temple. They were still looking at physical things and prioritizing them. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Verse 3. The moment Jesus said that, their hearts began to beat. So anybody who builds his life on physical things, Jesus said everything will be wrecked. Peter was speaking, he said the elements of this world will melt. The moment Jesus told them everything on earth that is physical, including your bank and bank account, will be melted, their hearts now began to beat. Your business will burn. Your certificate will burn. I know you are a Harvard graduate and it's good. Use it now to the degree that you can. But remember, that certificate, if you like, go and insure it in a bank, it will be burnt. He said there will be no stone that will be left on the other. So their heart began to beat. And for the first time, they started thinking of something that is eternal. And so as they sat upon the mountain, you notice that there was silence. They asked him this question in the temple. They kept quiet and he trekked until he came to the mountain and sat down. That was when they caught their breath. If this thing you are saying is true, they now came up with another kind of question that has eternal value. And the question was, as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, what shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming? And what shall be the sign of the end of the world? So the coming of Jesus itself is a sign of the end. Are you following? And then there are signs that precedes the coming of Jesus. So you are talking two categories of realities. The signs that come before his second coming, and then his second coming itself being a sign of the end of the age. Now that they are talking something that matter, Jesus can talk. You know, the first one they brought to him, he answered them in one verse and kept quiet. Now he will speak for more than 30 verses, because this one is a heavy matter. And Jesus began to speak, and he said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. Now, the foundation of immorality in the last days is deception. And so the whole science about morality is weaved into deception. A man who is not deceived cannot be immoral. The reason you find many people fall into immoral living in the last days is because they are deluded. And as I go through scriptures, you will understand what I'm talking about. In verse 5, it says, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. So the reason deception will thrive is because men will want to usurp the authority of God and make people understand that everything God represents, they represent it. So they will not need to keep God's moral standard and still receive what God says he has to offer. So it's not just about saying a person. Now, there are many persons who have come in history who claim that they are Christ. But you see, this thing is telling us something that is deeper than people Evil systems will take the place of God in the last days. So they can come and tell you that forget about all this teaching on faith for divine health. Better adopt medicine. If you don't, you are finished. And then they will project a lot of what do you call it now? Plagues. And so people will become afraid. And so medicine will become Christ in the life of many people. And when you make medicine your God, and I'm not saying anything is wrong with medicine, but I'm saying medicine is a corridor that the devil will ride on. And when you make medicine your God, the next thing they will come back and tell you, sex is the best form of exercise. If you want to live long, better begin to practice it from the age of 17. And if you practice it regularly, your genes will be built up and you will live long. And many people who have no regard for the real Christ now, who said sex cannot be done outside marriage because the system have become Christ, they will have to substitute the law of Christ and follow the new law that the system prescribes. Because another Lord has been established. And then for those who still refuse, because this thing has taken center stage and it has paralyzed even the government of the day, the government will now start passing laws. And so you go to many nations, your child of 14 years can come home with his boyfriend and they'll be doing exercise. If you talk, you'll be jailed. Because medicine is now Lord. And they will now go further and shift it into perversion and tell you there's nothing special about your gender. You are actually what you feel like. Meanwhile, Christ, who is your first Lord, said, we walk by faith, not by sensory perception. But medical science now has become a weapon in the hands of the devil. And so it tells you that your sex is what you feel like. So if you were born a boy and you feel like you are a girl, it's your feeling that determines who you are. And so your father can say nothing because even the government have put an embargo. If he talks anything, he's fighting your will. And so a child of 5 years, of 7 years, who cannot choose the school he goes to, can choose his own gender. And there's nothing your father can do about it. And this is happening now in the world. And then your child, the government will pay for everything. Your child will undergo a surgery. Your child will be, his gender will be changed. And he will become a transgender. And he will become an ambassador to motivate others to follow the delusion.